Welcome. NOAA's just published its July of 2022 Global Climate Report. And you've all heard of the terrible droughts that are going on in California and in Europe and such like. And I think to misquote the words from Sonny and Cher, the heat goes on. Let's take a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. July was the 6th warmest July on record. That's of 143 samples. La Nina is still present probably until January of 2023. Now that's longer than we were talking about last month, so the La Nina seems to be more persistent. The Arctic had its 12th lowest July sea ice extent, whereas the Antarctic set a new record there, and that's the second month in a row that the Antarctic has set a new record low. Atmospheric CO2 reached a new record for July at 418.9 parts per million. Well, let's take a look at how these climate records are distributed around the globe. In North America, it was the second hottest July on record, Europe the 6th hottest, Asia the 3rd, Africa the 13th, South America the 14th. Australasia had the coolest July since 2012, and La Nina persists in the Eastern Pacific. Well, here are some of the numbers. Globally, the average temperature was 0.87 degrees centigrade, above the 20th century average. Land at 1.26 degrees centigrade, ocean at plus 0.72 degrees centigrade. The Northern Hemisphere was the 3rd warmest on record at plus 1.09 degrees centigrade. The Southern Hemisphere was the 8th warmest at 0.65 degrees centigrade, above the 20th century average. On the right, we have what is called a percentiles map, which shows record low and record high temperatures. The record coldest temperatures are shown by dark blue, and as you can see, there are none of those on the map. There are a few areas that are much cooler than average and a few areas that are cooler than average, but generally not very much blue on that map. On the other hand, record warmest, there's a large number of pixels that have in that dark shade of red, and most of the rest of them are much above average or warmer than average. Well, let's put July of 2022 and 2022 so far in context with the previous years and months. As I said, 2022 July is the 6th warmest, so I've put that on there, and you can see that it ranks very similarly with the previous months. But more importantly, 2022 seems to be beating out 2021 for the 6th warmest year on record. That would make it that the 8 of the last 8 years are the 8 warmest years on record, and the chances of that happening by accident or just randomly is absolutely minuscule. All of this is happening while we're still in a La Nina, which is a cooling of a large portion of the Eastern Pacific. How is the upper atmosphere faring? This is data from UAH, and that measures the average temperature of the first 13 kilometers of the Earth's atmosphere. So it's not measuring surface temperatures, it's measuring temperatures way up in the atmosphere, probably about 4 kilometers or so. And you can see the last month, it actually increased in temperature to one of the higher levels around. This data has been done by Roy Spencer, who is a climate skeptic, by the way. You can see that the July temperature increased over June's quite significantly. And the long-term trend in his data is 0.14 degrees centigrade per decade. So even a climate skeptic is now having to admit that the Earth is warming. Here is everybody's favorite point of contention, Arctic sea ice. It was the 12th lowest amount of sea ice in the Arctic in July on record, and you can see that it's but still below average. The Antarctic, on the other hand, showed a big drop in sea ice for this last month. That's 9% lower than the same time last year, amazing amount, and sets a new record by quite a long way. Well, let's see how the ENSO cycle is going. The La Nina conditions are persisting longer than we thought, and this is a probabilistic forecast from NOAA showing the relative chances of a La Nina, that's the blue, gray is ENSO neutral, and red is an El Nino. La Nina is likely to persist until at least January of next year, possibly even into February, but then we should get into ENSO neutral conditions early next year. Well, let's take a look at what's going on with the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This is the results from the Mauna Loa Observatory. In July of 2022, we have 418.9 parts per million. That's up 1.96 parts per million from the same time last year. Though it's not particularly relevant to climate conditions, let's take a look at solar conditions. Solar cycle 25 continues to go on and grow. You will notice that the NASA NOAA projection here has increased somewhat, now to be significantly higher than the previous cycle. They just fitted it better to the activity levels that we've seen from the new cycle. That's been outperforming their model quite significantly. It's still well ahead of predictions though, and we need to probably revise it again depending on what happens over the next few months. The fact that this is growing, there's lots of sunspots on the sun at the moment, means that there is no sign of a grand solar minimum. So what can we learn from all of this? La Nina is hanging in there longer than we expected, and so the Eastern Pacific will remain cool, and global temperatures will not go up quite as much as they would be if we were in ENSO neutral or in El Nino. Globally, even so, globally it was the 6th hottest July on record. Global sea ice extent in July was the 3rd lowest on record. That would include the combination of both Antarctica and the Arctic. Atmospheric CO2 reached a new record high for July. So thank you for watching my video. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.